More chaos breaking out in Los Angeles after riots divided the city as the struggle to keep residents and law enforcement safe also escalated tension between the administration and some California lawmakers. A firestorm on social media from LA residents and lawmakers in Washington, sickened by the response from Governor Gavin Newsom and LA Mayor Karen Bass, who tried to blame the president for sending in the National Guard troops to help protect law enforcement and the city. California Congressman Darrell Issa posted, Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass have a real habit of letting Los Angeles burn. If only Karen Bass fought against the Los Angeles fires like she fights for illegal aliens. Joining us now to discuss this is the former superintendent of the Chicago PD and retired special agent in charge of the FBI, Jody Weiss. Good morning to you, sir. Always great to see you.
Good morning.
First, let's talk about Mayor Bass and Governor Newsom, who really from the bounce were so vehemently opposed to these ICE raids where we know DHS, the FBI, and DEA executed these federal search warrants across LA. What's your response first to that?
You know, it's reprehensible, Jan, for the mayor and the governor to so vehemently oppose what ICE is doing. Let's look at what the agents are doing. All they're doing was executing federal search warrants. That's a legal and lawful law enforcement action, and they're being attacked by everyone on the left. And that is ridiculous. The remarks of the elected officials did nothing to calm the situation. Let's keep in mind, that's their responsibility, keep the public safe. I would say their remarks did quite the opposite, inciting hundreds, even thousands of people to come out and aggressively interfere with this operation.
We've seen videos of rioters setting fires, attacking ICE agents. We're hearing they're even doxing and targeting some of the families of these ICE agents. What are you hearing? Because some lawmakers say, oh, it's been very peaceful, nothing to see here.
Yeah, that's exactly my point. The number one responsibility of government is to protect the public. And these officials are doing anything but. They're actually promoting fear. They're sowing like chaos throughout the community. They're actually insinuating that anyone could be picked up by ICE. And that is an absolute blatant lie. What they're doing is disgusting, and it's extremely dangerous for all of Los Angeles, and it's putting the police in a really, really tough situation. Speaking
of police, there's been some criticism of the LAPD because it took hours for officers to arrive on the scene to help some of these federal agents who are being attacked and assaulted by demonstrators and some of these activists wearing masks. I know you are personally friends with the LAPD chief there. Have you talked to him?
Yeah, we've exchanged some text messages. Jim is a friend of mine, and he's in that proverbial place between a rock and a hard place. As you know, LAPD policy actually prevents the department from carrying out immigration operations. I think that's been in place since 1979. There's also been a Senate bill that's been passed in 2017 that does basically the same. However, LAPD and all law enforcement has the responsibility to keep the public safe, and that includes the federal agents. So for Jim McDonnell to stand up on national television and a presser and say, we're overwhelmed, that's the third largest police department in the United States. What does that tell you about what's going on in Los Angeles right now?
Yeah, you were chief of police in Chicago, another big city that's also had its share of riots and demonstrations. How would you advise him and other police chiefs in this case? Would you have requested reinforcements from the National Guard?
That's always a tricky thing to do. I would have early on been proactive, work with ICE, find out what they're doing, where they're doing it, when they're going to do it, and make sure we have a base resources in place to stop anything from just taking off. Work with all law enforcement, check with the Joint Terrorism Task Force, know what the intelligence is saying, and you got to consider all options. And one of those would be the National Guard. Now, that is a little bit tricky. Yes, the National Guard can be very valuable. They can do crowd control, they can secure locations, they can keep people and places safe, they can help prevent looting, they can provide a lot of logistical support that oftentimes you see in hurricanes. They cannot perform law enforcement operations. Posse Comitatus prevents that from happening. And there are concerns. Will there be overreach? Coordinating with the National Guard. Are you all on the same communication frequencies? And they're not a long-term solution, but my recommendation would keep all options on the table and be proactive. Get in early to keep these protesters from ever getting a foothold.
Right. So you say that the policy prevents the department from carrying out immigration operations, but you still would have coordinated with the federal law enforcement agents there in what they were doing with those raids. That's still legal.
Yeah, I would certainly have done that, because what you're doing is providing safety to the officers doing their job, as well as to the residents, to keep these idiots that are coming out there burning cars breaking windows, looting. I'm not sure how that really promotes their cause, but you could have prevented that. You just can't be teamed up with the officers actually, or the agents doing the immigration operations, but you can certainly do everything necessary to keep the public and those officers safe.
Did he do that?
He did. I think the problem was, Janet, got a little bit late into the game. You've got the governor and the mayor saying, we're not going to cooperate, everything. So I think LAPD probably waited a bit too long. They're not now. They are in front of this right now. We saw last night on television, they are out there leading the charge. So I think the first couple nights, they were a little bit late getting into it, but they're actively engaged right now, along with the Guard.
All right. Former superintendent of the Chicago PD and retired special agent in charge at the FBI, Jody Weiss. It's a long title there. Thanks for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Jan. Have a great day.
You too.